Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in. Want to tell you about a conversation I had with Ammon Bundy this morning. As you may know, he was arrested again for probably for the eighth time in the last 3 years in Idaho, during a football banquet for his son's football team. There must have been between 50 and 100 people in that room, everybody enjoying themselves, and all of a sudden sheriff deputies showed up from Ada County, Idaho, arrested him in front of everybody, without any incident. And he was thrown in jail for 3 days, bailed out on a $10,000 bond, for a contempt of court. And the contempt of court was because a judge ordered Ammon to shut his mouth up. Now, isn't that a violation of your First Amendment rights? How can a judge tell you not, when the case is over, the trial is over, the plaintiff was awarded $55 million. So Ammon has been ordered to pay $55 million, and so has Diego Rodriguez. And the case is over. Now they need to collect. And good luck, right? Collecting. But he's been ordered to say nothing more about St. Luke's Hospital, which is the plaintiff, where, Ammon and many patriots in Idaho had been denouncing the abuses that were committed in the baby Cyrus case that just happened a year ago or a year and a half ago. I forget when. Actually, more than that. Holy cow, time flies. But anyways, it was the efforts of many, many, many people involved that was able to recover that baby from CPS and from foster care, because they were going to put this baby in foster care from a good family that had violated no rights, that had hurt not that baby, that was taken care of. The parents are model people, model parents. And St. Luke's got involved, called CPS. CPS wanted to take the baby away, which they did. They had the baby taken away from the mother's arms and put into the system. For a week, that mother didn't have that baby in her arms, which was being breastfed. And because of the efforts of Ammon Bundy and many people who got involved, including myself and many more, we were able to recover that baby back to the arms of the mother and the father. And throughout this whole time, we were denouncing what was happening with people underground and saying, how St. Luke was violating the rights of the people, of these parents. And that's the reason why Ammon got sued, and Diego as well, because they were, the main voices on that. Now, this whole situation reminded me of my parents' story in Cuba, which I'm going to tell here in a moment. But where are we in this country this day? Let me tell you the story about my parents in Cuba and why I called Ammon, and hopefully, help him put things in perspective. My dad had graduated from the University of Havana as an architect with summa cum laude honors. He was very well liked by the professors, of course, and he went on to have a great career in Cuba. He didn't work for the government. He didn't work for the military. He was a private citizen. He had married my mom 13 or 15 years before that. And by then they had 2 kids, which was my brother and my sister, who were 9 years and 5 years respectively. In 1959, Castro took over the island of Cuba, the country that was at the time the 24th economy of the world. The standard of living was, for the people in Cuba, for all the people in Cuba, was the same as it was in the United States. The peso, Cuban peso, and the dollar was traded at, par value. And Cuba made incredible contributions to technology, engineering, agriculture, in all the facets. And so my parents knew who Castro was, where 90% of the people in Cuba did not. And they were all supporting Castro because they thought Castro was going to return democratic elections in Cuba, because right before that, Fulgencio Batista had done a coup d'etat on the elected president of Cuba and regained power with the force of the gun, right? So they took the elected president out, and people were astounded that he did that. But Castro came and took the opportunity to bring the revolution, the communist revolution, into Cuba. And people didn't think he was a communist. Castro said he wasn't a communist until later, until he had seized power completely in the island. And my dad and my mom tried to kill Castro 3 times, involved in conspiracies to kill him. And during those 2 years, 59 through 61, they apprehended my dad twice. And my mom was sure that he was going to be killed in the jail. And after the second time that my dad was apprehended, and he was able to leave the jail under miraculous circumstances, my mom had a talk with my dad and said, listen, we need to leave because they're going to kill you. If they kill you, I'm going to be left alone raising these 2 kids. That's not going to be easy. And we need to leave the island. My dad always held hope that the people in Cuba would arise and see the writing on the wall and take Castro down and return back to a constitutional republic that it was, with democratic elections like the United States is or was. And so my dad fled in 61. A year later, I was born in Puerto Rico. My dad lived a fulfilled life, but the government wanted to kill my dad. The revolutionaries wanted to kill my dad. But, they came to a U.S. territory, Puerto Rico, and lived a fulfilled life there. And that's the story that I shared with Ammon. And, what are your choices, Ammon? You're either going to get killed by this government because they don't care. They will eliminate the competition really quick. They don't want people denouncing them. They will arrest them, abuse them, deprive them of their rights. And here we are, the rest of us. And in that banquet, not one person stood up. There was a lady shooting the video from her seat at the table. There's another lady right across the table, and the deputies in the background. If you can go find the video and see the lady right in front of the camera with the sheriffs over here, that lady just facing the camera, participant in the banquet, just like with a face like that. Scared, fear, zipped. And not one other person in that room stood up to defend Ammon and tell the sheriffs, you cannot do this here. We're not going to let you ruin our activity. Or stand up for an innocent man that has rights to speak. Not one person stood up. And I know Ammon personally, and after all he's done and all these last since 2014, if I remember correctly, at the Bundy Ranch, and everything else that has happened after that, this man has put his life on the line. And how many of us are standing with him? I tell you, there's plenty of people out there, not plenty, just some people out there that have stood with him. But I can tell you there's not enough people standing with him. And that's the problem we have in this country this day, is that the people don't care. They don't care to lose their rights. They don't know what's going to hit them. They're like boiled frogs. The government is raising the temperature little by little until the people find out they're boiled frogs and they're dead in the water. Isn't this supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave? Or is it the land of the meek and the home of the lame? What happened? What happened to the people in this country that cannot stand for the principles that are written on the Constitution for individual rights and will not defend a man that is being hauled away, depriving him of his right and freedoms under the color of law? This judge is criminal. The sheriff's deputies are criminal. And from the whole bunch of the 50 to 100 people that was in that banquet, it didn't stand up. It's just a sliver of the pie that you can see in this country of the United States of America. So I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to leave this here. This is the bottom line for us and for Ammon. What are his choices? To be thrown in jail again for years, as he was before, spent 2 years in jail, in federal jail, and could not be convicted of one single misdemeanor charge. The judge was completely embarrassed by the case, and she was in on it. And she was so embarrassed by the information that was coming out in that case that she had to drop all the charges against Ammon. And released after serving 2 years in jail, half of the time in solitary confinement, because they abused him inside the jail. What are we doing? We're so busy with the Kardashians and the whatever else. Our little comfortable air-conditioned lives, that we don't have the courage to defend our own rights and defend an innocent man. This may not apply to you, but it applies to most of the people here in the United States. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Live free and be happy.